thereby encouraging companies to make a proactive effort. And we are updating this whitelist once in a month to show the progress. And in a way to give implicit pressure to the companies that are not responding to our requests. If you take a look of this so-called list here, the top part are companies listed in Prime, the bottom part are companies listed in Standard. You see that many well-known companies, they have disclosed their action in English as well. For example, Fanuc, Empras, and Kyocera, etc. These are well-known Japanese companies. Okay, next slide, please. And this slide, we'll take a look of what companies are actually trying to do to improve their value. As you can see on the left graph, many companies disclose their initiatives in their midterm management reports and financial result presentation material. And then if you look at the right-hand side, the graph on the right-hand side, as a specific measure of improvement, many companies mention investment for growth, strengthening shareholder returns, sustainability initiatives, human capital investment, and review of a business portfolio. Next. Actually, a difficulty we have is trying to persuade Japanese companies to disclose in English. As I said, Prime market is a market for companies which cater the business and constructive dialogue with global investors. If you look at this graph, the first two bars actually shows the previous so-called TAC first section companies. And in 2020, only 72% of companies reported in English, whereas in 2022, the number has gone up to 97%. We think the prime market listed companies should endeavor to simultaneously disclose information in English and in Japanese, and we will prioritize making mandatory the English disclosure of financial reports and timely disclosure information. This will be applicable starting from April 2025. And so with that, we think it will be easier for foreign investors to get information of Japanese companies. Okay, I've come to the so-called the last few slides of my presentation. And here, we would like to introduce to you the Japanese ETF market. And this graph is a comparison of Asian countries' ETF market size. As you can see, the Japanese ETF market is the biggest in Asia Pacific, followed by China, Taiwan, Australia, Korea, India, Hong Kong, and Singapore in that order. And in fact, the AUM, the asset under management of Tokyo ETF market now has reached 84 trillion yen, which is about 550 billion US dollars. Okay, the next slide, we have a number of figures. Currently, there are more than 300 ETF listed in Tokyo Stock Exchange, and there are 19 issuers with 12 registered market makers. As I mentioned, the AUM is currently 84 trillion Japanese yen. So we have a very healthy ecosystem as far as ETF market is concerned, and the liquidity, which is also very good, is due to the fact that we have 12 registered market makers. These are professional, institutional market makers who come in and make sure that prices are competitive for investors to take part in. Again, some more so-called figures for you to digest, right? What we'd like to emphasize here is that if you are considering taking exposure in Japanese equity, the TAC listed ETF market is definitely one area you should start with. And we have over 120 different Japanese equity funds available on the market. And these ETFs cover various strategies, such as major index trackers, sector-specific funds, and thematic ETFs. Okay, in this slide, we compile a list of ETFs that have big AUMs exceeding 100 billion Japanese yen, or about 660 million USD. And this slide shows the ETFs that are linked to the prominent so-called indices in Japan, namely TOPIX, Nikkei 225, and JPX Nikkei 400. In fact, if you look at the right-hand side, trust fees, the most cost-effective option actually goes down to just 4.5 basis points, which is very, very cheap. And for your information, they are actually issued by BlackRock, iShare, via the iShare brands. This is for your information only. And as I mentioned just now, the ETF market in Japan enjoys excellent liquidity, right? The left-hand graph shows you the trading so-called activity. So the ADV, average daily value, is about 100 billion JPY. And then on the right-hand side, it shows you the breakdown of the market share. In fact, what I would like to mention is that you need to know that you cannot gauge the liquidity by looking at only the trading volume on so-called on-screen order book. In fact, ETF trading takes place across diverse venues, with over half of the Japanese equity ETF occurring OTC, meaning over the counter, as shown in the right pie chart. And then I need to do some quick explanation regarding the four terms you see here. If you refer to the left-hand side, arrowhead in red, there is actually a trading engine by Tokyo Stock Exchange. That means ETF traded via the TSE trading engine. To the right, we have TOSNet. This is actually also an exchange system, but it is kind of off auction and is meant for large so-called lot or basket trades. The next one is off exchange. So this is what we meant by OTC contribution. The right-hand side, CQ, is actually in short for connector. This is a so-called specialized so-called request for quote, mainly meant for institutional investors. Okay. Next slide, please. Yeah, in this slide, we show you the number of newly listed ETFs on Tokyo Stock Exchange since 2018. So as you can see, it is gradually growing, and we expect more ETF to be launched in our market this year. Okay. Next. Okay, I've actually come to the last two slides of my presentation. And I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce to you a new index which we introduced in July last year. It's called the JPX Prime 150 Index. And the selection criteria include three so-called points. The first one is so-called market capitalization. The second point is positive equity spread, to be followed by PB ratio of more than 1. The last slide, please. Okay, the last slide shows the comparison between JPX Prime 150 versus the TOPIX. And we actually back tested the data starting from 2013. And in fact, the two so-called indices were doing pretty close until mid-2019, as you can see from this graph. And then over the last 9-year period, in terms of Sharpe ratio, or the return, or the risk level, JPX Prime 150 is slightly better than TOPIX index. And with that, I end my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, for that insightful presentation. Now, before we proceed, I would just like to take a short break from all the information, give everyone a chance to really absorb. It was very, very information heavy, and I'm not sure about you, but I learned a few things myself as well. So thank you so much for the insightful presentation once again. And I would just like to take a quick break to talk about our Poyons Mobile Tree app. Okay, now with new and improved features, if you want to have a community of like-minded investors and discover ideas from others, then I encourage you to scan the QR code, download the app, and take a look at our communities. My colleagues and myself post there quite often as well, and it's free to use. So currently we have separated our communities into several different topics. For example, earlier on we were talking about ETFs. You can start a discussion on ETFs in our ETF community there as well. We actually have one of our staff who is in charge of that community, and he will always be offering his insights and talking about ETFs and keeping you updated on all the latest ETFs. I highly recommend checking out the communities. It's also free to use, by the way. You don't need to be a Poems account holder to access our communities. You can actually just scan the QR code here, download the app. It's available on iOS and Android. Download the app, create a free account. And when I mean create a free account, I mean free to use the app. You don't need to create a Poems account yet. Although I'm pretty sure after you see some of the features, you will. So take a look at our Poems Mobile Trade app communities. Let us know what you think of the webinar over there as well. We have a lot of our stuff. We even have technical analysis. We even have growth stocks. We even have dividend stock picks. It's all over there. It's all for free and it's all for you. Okay. Now, moving on from this, of course, this is a community, and if you use Telegram, okay, you can also consider joining our Global Markets Telegram channel. We post daily US updates there, and sometimes we also have promotions and activities that are exclusive to the channels. We also cross-post other channels like technical analysis. We even have a stock trading, Singapore stock trading group, where people discuss their ideas over there. Okay, so if Telegram is more your cup of tea, it's also more easy. A lot of people are already using Telegram. Okay, you can scan this QR code here to join our Global Markets Telegram channel, and slowly you will discover all the Telegram channels that we have to offer. We have news, we have promotions, we have activities, all on Telegram as well. Okay, so now moving to the biggest ETF market in Asia. Okay, but just before that, okay, I want to show you some ETFs that will get you exposure into the Japanese markets. I would first briefly like to touch on some of the metrics that I'll be showing you shortly. I'm aware that a lot of people already know, but just in case anyone is unsure, I'd just like to touch on a few of them first. Okay, the first of which is NAV, or net asset value. Okay, provides fair value estimate of your investment in the fund, and changes in the NAV over time reflect the performance of the underlying asset the fund holds. Now, next is the expense ratio, okay, which basically is the cost to owning this ETF. Um, Earlier on, you heard Mr. Lee talk about it also on one. Actually, we will be introducing that ETF later on. It's a very very low expense ratio. It's a very very low cost. So in a sense, it's cheap. Okay. So this percentage is basically the fund's assets that are used to cover operating costs such as the administrative costs, management fees, other fees like regulatory fees, shareholder reporting costs, things like that, okay, which are necessary for an ETF. Okay, the expense ratio directly impacts overall returns as well from your investment, and lower expense ratios are often attributed to higher NAV growth over time as well. Okay, and I will show you a chart, okay, of some total returns. This is a little bit of a hindsight thing, but it's also very interesting to see the growth of certain sectors, the growth of certain ETFs that track a specific index in the Japanese markets as well, to see how it has performed over the last 5 years, and the growth as well, if you assuming you reinvested all the dividends uh, into the fund. Okay, before I move on, now I'll be introducing some ETFs that you can consider given the current trend of the growing AI and semiconductor industries. However, it is also very good to bear in mind that many vendors of devices for chip making and testing in the current trend, in the current AI environment, excuse me, for chip making and testing, there is producers of materials and chemicals. They are found across various sectors. You seldom find one in like one sector. They usually do a few different things. So, for example, later I'll introduce you to 1625.jp. This is the Precision Instruments ETF, if I remember correctly. It contains both companies that are related and not related to chip making. However, being at the core of it, chip making companies, we want to follow the trend. We want to be on top of the trend even. So since we're such a big ETF market, these are some of the things that we can show to you for your consideration. Okay, there will be some ETFs in other sectors as well, such as automobile, worth mentioning that are included as well. But I will be explaining a little bit more on the AI and semiconductor side. It's been requested from us, not just to me, but to many of our other teams, to our research, to other people that are conducting webinars as well. So I would just like to uh, talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so let's move on to the first one. Okay, I've introduced this enough. Okay, next funds topics exchange traded fund. Okay, this tracks the topics index. Okay, it's 1306.jp, sitting at a net asset value of 284.60 as of last week. This has a very low expense ratio of 0.057% with a market cap of 22.97 trillion Japanese yen. Okay, not really dividend focused, about 1.78%, but I would like you to take a look at the top five holdings. Okay, we have very counters that are very familiar, very successful companies. They are also endeavoring and delving into the latest AI trends as well as electric vehicle trends. For example, you have Toyota. Okay, this it weighs in at 4.88% of the next fund's topics exchange traded fund. Okay, so very popular. They're also doing their own electric vehicles. Okay, uh, globally known company. Okay, yeah, originating from Japan. Next, we have Sony Group Corporation. We're sitting at 2.39% weightage. This company as well is known worldwide. They do so many different things, anything from games to electronics. We have Sony Group involved in it as well. Okay, followed by Mitsubishi Financial Group, sitting at 2.33%. Okay, now I'd like to take a moment to talk about this next counter, which is Tokyo Electron. And I'd like for everyone to just bear in mind this counter, especially in the current climate of AI and semiconductors. Okay, so what if you're not very sure? Because I know based on the people that trade with us, okay, that maybe Japanese counters have not yet taken off. This is your opportunity and one of the stocks that you could benefit from looking and learning about. Okay, so let me tell you why. Tokyo Electron offers basically comprehensive production as well as testing devices along with appliance solutions for chip making, and these chips that are be used by large AI companies. Okay, it also happens to be the leading supplier to TSMC, and this is basically an achievement that is comparable, sorry, to Applied Materials, AMAT, and Lam Research. Okay, although currently this stock might be overpriced a little bit. Okay, there is accelerated demand for production and testing devices for advanced chips as well. So again, Tokyo Electron 8035 JP sitting at 1.96% of this ETF. Okay, is something worth reading into. I don't want to go into too much of it right now, but I just wanted to share some of their notable achievements and what their core business model actually is. Okay, so and last we have Keyence Corp. Okay, which you'll see later on as well. So let me just do a quick time check. Okay, uh, now I want to move on to the next one. Okay, so what happens if this is the hindsight part that I was talking earlier. We all know that Japan has recently surged. Excuse me, recently surged has been it break all-time highs and there's a lot of attention coming in. So just a little fun thing, if you had invested in this ETF 5 years ago now, just before COVID started, okay, as you can see, there's this little dip. Every single chart had this little dip because of COVID. So, but if you had invested in this, you would be sitting at a comfortable 92% gain, which is really good for a 5 year period actually. Okay, so I just want to move on real quick. Okay, so next funds, the Nikkei 225 ETF, sitting at net asset value of 41,236.4. Okay, with an expense ratio of about 0.1%. Okay, with a market cap. This is also one of the very, very popular, arguably one of the most popular ETFs for Japan. You know, you really want to just get into the index. You just want to really get exposure into the Japanese market. Maybe this is one of the things that are for you. Okay, this is one of the counters. Oops, sorry. This is one of the counters that is worth looking at. Okay, so now I just want to zoom in into the top five holdings. We have fast retailing, 11.29%. This seems like a lot. It is a lot, okay, but I want to move past that. And you notice, you see Tokyo Electron again. Again, very, very competitive company when it comes to the chip making industry. Okay, now what I want you to, this is the other counter that I would like everyone to maybe do some research into if you're into the whole AI trend. Okay, and that is Advantest Corporation, 6857 JP, sitting at 4.37% of this index, of this ETF, sorry, weightage. Okay, now Advantest provides testing equipment for chip making, similar, a little bit similar to Tokyo Electron. Okay, there is also accelerated demand for testing devices, although this counter similarly to Tokyo Electron is a little, might be possibly overpriced as well. Okay, but you know, it is also part of, as the name suggests, it provides a lot of testing equipment and a lot of equipment that is essential to the chip making production line. Okay, and the next one is SoftBank. A lot of people I'm sure have heard about SoftBank. Okay, so we'll move on to something that is lesser known, but something else that you should also know about, and that is 4063 JP, sitting at 2.71% weightage, and that is Shin-Etsu Chemical Company Limited. Okay, Shin-Etsu Chemical, they create what is it called? Wafer material and makes chemical products which are crucial to the production of AI chips. Okay, the one thing interesting about Shin-Etsu Chemical is that they boast the largest global largest share for silicon wafer materials. So if you're more into the AI trend and you're more into the production and you're more savvy when it comes to this, you will know that they use these flat things. I personally am not too well versed in this, but they use these flat materials that they call wafers. Okay, and Shin-Etsu Chemical creates this wafer material that is needed to create these chips. Okay, so another thing, also good fun to look at. Okay, similar to the topics ETF earlier on. If you were invested in this ETF, the next funds Nikkei 225 ETF, 5 years ago, exactly 5 years ago today, you would be at about 102.6% in your returns, which just goes to show you the real growth of the Japanese market. Since these two are tracking the indices, okay, so you can really see how the growth is consistent, stable, and is definitely showing, you know, a good upside potential. Okay, now this one I believe if you are involved heavily in semiconductor, you would definitely have heard of this already. Okay, Global X Japan Semiconductor ETF, I believe is what is it, 2644.jp .jp. Okay, net asset value of 4,000, sorry, $4,954. Okay, sorry, Japanese yen, with an expense ratio slightly higher than what you've seen so far, about 0.59%. Okay, but with a market cap of about 70.47 billion. Now, there's a reason that I want to bring this up in the current climate is because if you take a look at the top six holdings, you see Tokyo Advantest already I mentioned before, and it's not a little bit, 11.4% and 10.96% of weightage as well. So I like to, and you can see, I'm going to put screen holdings aside first because I really want to focus on Disco, Lasertech, and Renesas. Okay, so the last three. Okay, so again, these are the counters that if you're really interested in the AI, these are some of the counters that you can really go and take a look at. Okay, but right now we're talking about ETF. So let me just give you a little bit about these companies. So as discussed earlier, Tokyo Electron Advantage are on the top holdings here as well. No surprise, this is the semiconductor ETF. Okay, now this scorecard, it sounds like It sounds like music, but it's actually one of the global leaders of chip cutting, dicing, grinding on back-end processes. They also have advanced technology for silicon cutting technology. So it's not a music company at all. Okay, it's actually a global leader in chip cutting. Okay, which as you can infer, it's very very important to the AI chip making industry. Now, moving on, we have LaserTech. So their main business is scanning and testing devices, which apply optical, electronic, and microscopic technology, and they create testing devices for photomasking, which and it's created by this thing called UEV lithography. Okay, I'll say that again because it was a term that was foreign to me until we had a little bit of research going on. Okay, so it's UEV lithography. That's UEV LITHOGRAPHY. Okay, which is crucial for advanced chips that are tinier than 5 nanometer nodes. Okay, so they're basically really really small nodes, about 5 nanometers across. Okay, and they also have a nearly 100% global share position for UEV lithography testing devices. Okay, so this is an important company. Okay, okay. Now moving on to the last one. Before I get too excited about laser tag. Okay, Renesas engages in power analog devices and MCUs, which are micro computing units. Okay, for automobiles and robotics. Appliances as well as servers and data centers. Okay, they have a pretty good, well integrated products mix, and they are a solutions provider for creating ECU components for EVs, electric vehicles, AD, which is auto driving, and ADAS, which is advanced driver assistance systems. Yes, that's right. For automobile sector clients. So you can see this. I mean, we're not really talking about EV, but smart cars are coming up to be a thing. Okay. And we're running a little bit low on time, so I just want to breeze through the rest really quickly. So if you're invested in this some time ago, about 5 years ago, you will be sitting at about 106% return. So if you're really into semiconductor, this is the thing that I advise you go and take a look at, go and read up, do your own research, and take note of the companies that are involved in it as well. Okay, now, earlier on in the introduction, I mentioned we were going to talk a little bit about automobiles as well. So, next fund's topic 17, automobiles and transportation equipment ETF. Okay, 1622.jp with a net asset value of 36,419. Expense ratio, not too high, 0.32%, with a market cap of 1.87 billion. This ETF is mainly focused on the sector of, as it says, automobiles and transportation equipment, with their top five holdings in Toyota, Honda, Denso, Bridgestone, and Toyota Industries. Okay, so we're pretty familiar. I'm sure most of us are familiar with at least two of these five holdings, which is Toyota and Honda. Okay, Toyota takes up a bulk of this with 51%. That is a lot. So if you are you're thinking of toying with the idea of getting into the automobile industry in Japan, you want some exposure, this might be the fund for you. Okay, let's just breeze through this. 5 years ago until now, you'll be about 124% of your original investment value. Okay, next one's topic 17, machinery ETF, 1624.jp, sitting at about 56,000 NAV. Okay, expense ratio of 0.32, very similar to the previous one. Okay, with a market cap of 1.45 billion. Okay, top five holdings. Again, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Daikin. Okay, and Disco is here as well, Disco Corporation. Okay, as well as Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and Komatsu Limited. Okay, gonna breeze past this. If you're interested in the yeah, machinery sector, okay, like industrial sector, okay, you might want to consider doing this as well. Sorry. Okay, now 5 years ago until now, 108%. You should be in the green. Okay, electric appliances and precision instruments. I brought this up earlier on a little bit. Okay, so net asset value about 37,692 with a 0.32% expense ratio. Okay, market cap of 4.61 billion yen. Okay, they have top five holdings is Sony, very, very famous company, as we talked about earlier. Tokyo Electron, don't forget Tokyo Electron production and testing devices, okay, for chip making. Okay, then we have Keyence, Hitachi, and Hoya, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Hitachi and Hoya as well. Okay, so we're just going to move past this. If you are interested in the precision manufacturing, precision instruments sector of Japan and you need a bit of exposure, check out 1625. Okay, now you'd be if you if you were in this 5 years ago and now you decide to sell, you'd be about 127% in. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for your time so far. Now, I would just like to move on to the Q&A section. Okay, just do a quick time check. We have about 10 minutes only for the Q&A section. So let me just stop my sharing. Oh, sorry. It's someone has brought up to me. It should be EUV, not UEV. Okay. Thank you so much, Ming Cho Lin. Okay, he's absolutely correct. It is EUV lithography. Earlier on, I made the mistake. Thank you for bringing it up. Yeah, I appreciate it. Okay, so Mr. Lee, let us move on to the Q&A section. Okay, I'm just going to open up the Q&A. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's talk about. We've got quite a bunch of questions, so I'm going to try and narrow it down for now. Okay. Oh, we have a very long one, so let's try and see this. A question by Mr. Victor Sherian. Okay. We will try and condense your question and answer it to the best of our ability. But let me just summarize it quickly. So, in the sub $1 billion market cap, there are a number of very attractive names, but the English disclosure for quarterly earnings or even news announcements are either very delayed or comes with a lag. Are there any steps that can be taken to improve this, please? Okay, so Mr. Lee, do you have any opinions on this?
Yeah, in fact, in my presentation earlier on, I've already mentioned that as an exchange, we have actually continuously engaged with the listed companies to encourage them to disclose timely information in English. And you can see that there has been improvement so far over the past many years. And this effort will be continued by the exchange. And I also mentioned that for prime listed companies, come April next year, they will need to so-called really disclose that information and in English. And hopefully going forward, the companies that are not listed in prime, but in other so-called the other two so-called market segments will also follow suit. So this is a continuous effort that the TSE is putting in.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. He has he has a part one to this question actually. So seems a little bit skeptical because despite all the corporate governance changes, it remains difficult for foreign individual investors to access Japanese IR teams or management. Okay, so he highlights that it's not really a problem for foreign institution, but as an individual investor, there remains a number of challenges. Are there any steps that one can take to improve the corporate access for foreign individual investors?
Okay, on this so-called corporate access issue, even for so-called institutional investors from outside of Japan, some of them have problem accessing listed companies in Japan. And we do understand that it is not actually the policy of these listed companies to engage individual investors. That is a set point. But again, as far as exchange is concerned, we are trying our best to encourage companies to engage with investors. And we cannot promise anything, But this again is a continuous so-called team effort that the exchange is doing to encourage more companies to engage in dialogue with their investors.
Okay, Mr. Victor, I hope we have at least given you some enlightenment to your questions. We're just going to move on into another other question first. So yeah, let me just scroll through. Okay, one of our attendees is asking, he heard that Japan Bank is giving negative interest to its clients. So when investing in Japanese stock or ETF, will the clients give the dividends to the ETF management instead of the other way around to us? I'm not very because this is an anonymous attendee. I can't reach out to you. Maybe you can drop us a message in the host and panelists. Maybe we'll talk about that separately. Okay, so we're just going to move on first. Okay, let's see. Because there's a number of questions. Let's filter through. Okay, Japanese markets have run up so much. Is it too late to participate now, or for long-term investors, it's never too late? Mr. Lee, do you have any opinions on this?
This is a question that we as an exchange cannot answer, you know. But
Okay.
in my previous presentation, I mentioned that according to the data we've seen so far, the foreign investors they continue to be net buyer of Japanese market, and then we at the exchange and the government as well, we have hope that because of the NISA, the Nippon Individual Savings Account, we will probably see some shift in the investment mentality of Japanese households. And but it's still early days, so we cannot say anything at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I have a question here. Are there any restrictions for foreigners to buy Japanese shares? Okay, so at the moment there are several shares which are limited foreign shareholding. So those shares are not really in the picture. Okay, apart from that, you can actually buy through POEMS. You can buy it online actually. There aren't any major restrictions on foreigners to buy Japan shares. In a nutshell, I just want to summarize it this way. Okay, moving on to another question. Any withholding tax for trading in Japanese ETFs? Are there any withholding tax for trading in Japanese ETFs? Okay, maybe I get one of my team to answer this question for you while we move on since we're running out of time. Okay, okay, Mr. Victor has a follow-up question actually. So I'm not so sure on this. Maybe perhaps Mr. Lee can advise a little bit on this. Are there any steps to discourage the use of poison pills in Japan? They seem to be used to the detriment of minority shareholders. I'm not very sure on what this poison pills definition is. Mr. Lee, do you have any insight?
As far as the exchange is concerned, we are not aware of such a move. But again, we are not 100% sure, so I cannot give a definite answer on that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We will move on. Okay, let's just we're coming up to the end already. Let's maybe take one other question. Let me open up the slide again because I see a question on what ETF would be what ETF that we can use to track the pharma and biotech industry in Japan. Just want to take a look. Did we include? I don't think we included this one. Okay, one moment. I believe I have an answer for this. I believe there is, if I recall correctly, there should be a Global X ETF on this. I think it's Sorry, just give me a moment. I'm trying to recall. If I remember correctly, it should be Global X Bio and MedTech ETF. Okay, I'm sorry, I cannot address this attendee directly. It's anonymous, but you can check that out. The Global X Biotech ETF. Okay, I'm not recommending it, but I believe this is one of the ETFs that are tracking. Okay, let's move on. I just want to address there are a lot of questions that are asking us on the to give advice on on what stocks to buy and things like that. I apologize, we are unable to provide this information. I cannot give you financial advice like that on what to buy specifically. We can give you the information though. Okay. Can I see real-time price feed for Japanese share by Poyos? This is, as I recall, Kenyon, is this the real-time price feed? Is in the works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is in the works right now. At present, not yet. Okay, Mr. Lee, do you see any other question you would like to take before we end the webinar?
Yeah, in fact, there is a question that asks whether there are any actively managed ETFs in Japan. In fact, TAC is the first in the Asia Pacific to start launching actively managed ETFs. And if I remember correctly, we probably have maybe like at least 7 actively managed ETFs starting from August last year.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining today. Thank you, Mr. Lee, for that presentation once again. I apologize, we have to come to the end of the webinar today. If you have any further questions, because I see a lot of open questions, but we don't have the time to get to it, you can head on over to our community to put the questions there. Okay. If you're in one of our Telegram channels, you can post the question there. One of our team members will get to it. And once more, I would like to thank Mr. Mark Lee from Tokyo Stock Exchange for joining us tonight and providing us with all the insights that we never would have had without him. So, Mr. Lee, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining in today. We hope to see you in our communities and on our channels. And thank you everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.